it safe in your community for women? What's that? Is it safe in your community for women?
Call 911, someone!
Call 911! You have anything to say, sir? No, not right now. Not right now? I'll try on the way out then. Fort Frances, Ontario, a small border town. The regional hub provides essential services for 10 surrounding First Nations. But there's a dark shadow that cuts through the heart of Treaty 3.
It was mostly my mom's boyfriends, guys that came in and out of her life. There was one point where my mom would make me and my sister do stuff together, and would make me and my mom and my sister do stuff together. Okay. Terrible stuff.
We are calling this young woman Heather. It's not her real name. APTN is protecting her identity. The 28-year-old mother of two has endured a cycle of trauma and abuse that she's trying to break free from for the sake of her children.
Being pushed around from foster home to foster home, switching schools all the time. When I get comfortable in a foster home or a school, I just get moved right away. Mostly passed around by CFS, unstable, unhealthy foster homes that were put in. Me and my sister were together at first till we got separated. And then bad things would happen all the time, even in care, even with foster parents.
Heather spent a lot of her childhood in care with Chittiwin Family Services, a First Nations-run child welfare agency that has come under fire over their mistreatment of children in their custody. But it wasn't only in care where Heather was exploited.
People know about it out here in Fort, about me and my sister. But we just get separated. And then my mom would steal us from a Chittiwin and run to different provinces and into women's shelters, and bad things would still happen. And my mom used to molest me and my sister when we were kids. And she'd let her boyfriends do it to me and my sister. When she would take us and she would hide us from the workers and the police.
While shocking, this type of predation has become increasingly common here in Treaty 3. Ontario has one of the highest rates of sex trafficking cases in the country. Indigenous women and girls are especially vulnerable to being targeted. And it's often done by the people you'd least expect.
We have issues of addiction. We have homelessness, which is related to the addiction. You know, we're dealing with trafficking. We're dealing with people exploiting other people because of their drug dependency and their need for food, their need for a roof over their head, their need for transportation is being exploited in a way that I've never seen before.
Hey, Heather.
Hi.
Are there any calls?
No.
No? We're good?
Peggy Lowy helps run the Rainy River Victim Services Program. The program is designed to work alongside law enforcement and other agencies to help victims of crime. She's also a band counselor at nearby Couchiching First Nation.
How would you describe the current situation in Fort Frances when it comes to addiction, poverty, trauma, how it plays out here?
We are in a crisis. We are in a crisis when it comes to addiction and the types of addiction we're facing, like with opiates, fentanyl, meth. We are in a crisis. We are in a crisis with right now with homelessness, but again, it's all so complex. It's not just one thing. Everything is so interconnected.
Poverty, addiction, sexual exploitation. Anyone can be a victim, but marginalized people are especially at risk.
We know firsthand where people are being exploited. We've heard stories of people being exploited because they needed to get from point A to point B and what it cost them to do that.
And you're not just hearing these stories, like they're coming through your front door, right?
They're coming through our front door. Yeah, well, they're coming through our front door. And, you know, when I go home at night, I don't as much dwell on the stories I've heard. I dwell more on what can I do about the people who are exploiting the people who are vulnerable to the hand they've been dealt.
How do you get to those guys or women? Because it's not all men, so.
I really want to know that, because I think we need to start shifting our attention and start figuring out who are these people.
It's a question that volunteers at the Fort Frances Family Center have also been asking. Over the years, the center has become a safe haven for the community's most vulnerable, and more recently, a lifeline for displaced community members who have set up tents and makeshift shelters behind the property.
They've all experienced trauma to different degrees, and as a result of that, a lot of them have addiction issues. Okay, they're not a lot are First Nations, and they can't go back to their communities due to breakdown in family units, due to drug use, or there's no housing. There's no housing available in these small communities.
For volunteers like Tracy Lockman, addiction and sexual exploitation in the community plays out in real time. In fact, as APTN was arriving at the center, Lockman was chasing a local man away.
Just this morning we had a man coming here. I don't know whether he was looking for sex or drugs. He's here often. We've kicked him off the property. We've phoned the police. The women depend on that, a lot of them.
You work the courts, you know, you've been around this area a while, you know how things are going. When you think of human trafficking, how are you seeing that play out here or in the area?
Well, what we see is a lot, for a long time, what we saw a lot of was just survival sex. Sex for drugs, sex for money, sex for acceptance. But we're starting to hear about individuals in the area, that whole trafficking aspect. It's like it's evolving. And a lot of these girls are vulnerable. They're dependent on drugs. And they'll do whatever it takes to get them.
It's a tragic story, but one that's becoming increasingly common. We were at the center for less than an hour when Lockman was informed of a young woman who had overdosed in one of the tents.
Call 911, someone.
Call 911!
The woman was unresponsive, only brought back after Lockman was able to administer 2 quick shots of naloxone.
Just holler if you need help with anything.
This is the space between life and death in Fort Frances.
Not responding.
Is he breathing? You got a pulse? Yeah, check his pulse.
So I was right behind you, and you were like going by all the tents along the fence, and you get there and you yell out 911. I saw her give her 2 shots. What happened?
It's the naloxone. We put it up her nose. I gave her the first dose, and it's an adrenaline, and she didn't respond. She didn't move. So I unwrapped another one and put it up her other nostril, and she moved.
You got a pulse?
What was going through your mind? Nothing?
You just do what needs to be done.
Just react.
Yeah, just get her up. Get her up.
You
Get her
saved
up.
her life. Like, if you didn't get that call from her dad to go check on her,
No.
maybe we're doing a different story right now.
Yeah.
And you have a dead person back there. She was dead.
Yes, she probably would have. She's been through a lot. Mother died of an overdose 2 days ago.
Her mom died of an overdose 2 days ago.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is what you're dealing with. This is just on that level. You're also dealing with predators. Like today, this morning,
Yeah.
trying to lure them away or give them more drugs.
Yeah.
Maybe he did give her drugs.
Yeah. Oh, could have been.
Because you have proof of him trying to sell patches and stuff.
Yeah. Fentanyl patches.
Fentanyl patches, yeah. And according to Tracy Lockman, the rate these incidents are occurring is mounting. Later that same day, a 17-year-old boy was also brought back from a suspected overdose. But with health and victim services stretched thin throughout the region, it's becoming more and more difficult to stem the tide.
They're not allowed in a lot of other places. They're not welcome in a lot of other places in Fort Frances. And we remember their names, their kids' names, what they've been through. You know, they talk to us. We advocate for them. We advocate for them to utilize services in other agencies too, you know. They're welcome here. They're not welcome in a lot of other places.
They sold you a dream. They sell you a dream. And that is really when they're trying to get you roped in. And then when you're like fully entrenched in it, that's not there anymore. It's just manipulation and abuse.
Manipulation, abuse, exploiting trauma. They are common practices within human trafficking. Something that Jessica Wilson experienced firsthand.
At the time, I was told that since I was under 18, I was not to perform sexual acts. It was like going on dates, going on dinners, and that's how it was like sold to me. That's where I was like, okay, it's not that big of a deal. I can do this. That's not. But the problem being is when somebody purchases you, they think they own you. They think they can do whatever they want to you. You know, they think that you're not worth anything, I guess, and it's violence and it's rape. That's really what it is. And that happened a lot.
Wilson was trafficked when she was just 17 years old. It began here in Couchiching First Nation.
But eventually it got to be very violent. It got to be very, I wasn't in control when I thought I was. It got to be to the point where I had no way, or I didn't know how to stop it or get out of it. And back then, there was no awareness on, I'd never even heard the term human trafficking. It was until many, many years later I realized that that's what was going on. Don't get me wrong, there was a lot of violence, there was a lot of people that purchased me and people that were supposed to protect me.
Today, Wilson shares her personal journey to help raise awareness around human trafficking. But don't call her a victim or a survivor. In her words, she's a fighter.
And that's why I have made it such a goal of mine to bring that awareness, bring that education, bring those preventative services, and really use my voice. I lost it for a long time. And many years after I was out of that lifestyle, I didn't feel like I was worth anything. You hold so much shame, so much guilt, and that's where I feel like I have to use my voice for people that can right now.
Here on Treaty 3, many of the survivors we speak with come out of the child welfare system. Intergenerational trauma, It's only perpetuated by systems and people meant to protect children. Like James Carty, who was charged with sexually abusing children in care when he was employed by Wichitowin's child welfare team at Rainy River First Nation. He was convicted and sent to prison for 3 years in 2015. And before that, Harry Kelly in 2012. The former longtime Weechi worker pled guilty to sexual interference for abusing a child in care under the age of 16. Kelly also got 3 years in prison. What do you think when you hear all that? Are you thinking all that? Like, how is that impacting what you're doing? Or
And that it does impact, because it's one of those things where it's like you're treading water is how you feel. You're treading water because it's you working with people and you're trying to help people navigate a way through to come to a place where they can address their past. But when you keep having these institutions that are perpetuating this, it's like you're fighting Goliath, right?
Heather knows this all too well. She told us her story, that's reflected in court documents.
And leaving him alone too at a hard time, because he promised me to get my kids back. He promised me he was going to marry me. He was going to pay off all my fucking stuff. He was going to help me get my own place. He said the band was going to pay for it because all his brothers work in the band office. He said that,
And what were you doing while he was telling you all this?
He was talking me into it by using me for sex.
This is how human trafficking can start. Preying on people out of their extreme need. According to court documents, for Heather, was a promise of reuniting with her children.
He just bribed me with my kids. Because he knew I wanted my daughter home.
So you shared things with him?
Yeah.
And then
he would sleep with me. He would sleep with me when I'm drunk. He would get me drunk and sleep with me.
According to court documents obtained by APTN, Heather's alleged abuser and trafficker is this man, Charles Windigo. Windigo has strong ties on Red Gut First Nation. Many of his family members sit on council. At the time of the alleged incident, he was employed as an Ontario Works Coordinator in the community, which helps people with welfare and disability money. Court documents outline the alleged abuse.
And trying to make me notice that he wasn't good for me and he was just using me, and that what he was doing was wrong, was human trafficking, and him pimping me out to his buddies for golf games. He was showing me off as a trophy, and he was letting his buddies try to sleep with me. And I did get traded once for a 2-4 of blue out in Cooch.
We managed to track down Windigo on his way into court this past summer. He is currently charged with 2 counts of sexual assault and 1 count of human trafficking. The allegations are that you used your power to sexually abuse women. What do you say to that?
No comment.
Is it safe in your community for women?
What's that?
Is it safe in your community for women? Anything to say, sir?
No, not right now.
Not right now? I'll try on the way out then. Soon after this encounter, APTN reached out to the chief of Red Gut. At the time, it was Will Windigo, Charles' younger brother. He promised to launch an investigation.
Okay, so the lawyer said that it's a non-disclosure, so I can't.
No, there's a
any
publication
comment.
ban on the
Or
identity of
comment.
the... Not you, sir. It's 486.4. So it's not on you. So
okay.
This is all allowed to happen.
All right.
So you want to talk to me and defend yourself at all, and say, you know...
Well, I have to defend myself in court of law, not with you. Well, like I said, I gotta deal with it over here, and then when it's over, you guys can talk to me then.
None of the allegations against Charles Windigo have been proven in court, and his trial was pushed to later this year.
People are playing on this trauma for their own I hate to call it a benefit, but you know what I mean? Like, they're just re-traumatizing and re-traumatizing this person for their own use. You know, but then they got to deal, you know, when you come out of that, you got to then face all those things that happen, and it just keeps mounting and mounting and mounting, you know, where people feel like they can never come out from under that. And it's just so unfair. And what one person will do to another just never ceases to amaze me.
You breathing? You got a pulse?
These individuals deserve their basic needs to be met, and we just don't have that here. We don't have the resource here, and they're falling through the cracks. It is very real, and it's happening to a lot of our people and a lot of our community members, a lot of our youth, and a lot more than people think.
It is emotionally draining, you know, and I come a long way. I came a long way from how I used to live to how I live now.
I always called it that it's a cross between an army barracks and a prison.
My mom and dad took us there because it was, they had no choice.
Si les gens veulent pas me croire, ils peuvent rien. Moi, j'ai pas conscience d'avoir fait quelque chose de grave. La